different seminar. It's not a scientific seminar like we normally have. We're going to be talking about nationally competitive scholarships and graduate fellowships. So for the sake of our speakers, out of sheer curiosity, if you are interested in eventually going to graduate school to get your PhD or master's, raise your hand. Okay. Any of you who are interested in getting like your MD degree, if you're pre-med? Is anyone planning on hopefully doing both? Maybe? That's a tough road. Okay. And then that gives at least our speakers a sense of what's going on. So I would like to introduce you to two different people today. They're going to go in order. We have David Neufeld right here from the Ehlers College. And so he is the director of the Nationally Competitive Scholarships Office at the university. And so that term I kind of throw around, but you'll know shortly what it means after he explains it. But those of you who are planning to do any of the things I just mentioned, grad school, med school, all kinds of other things, whether it be here domestically or internationally, there's going to be a lot of interesting opportunities for you. We also have with us today Georgia Ehlers, who's from the U of A Graduate College, and she is the director of fellowships and community engagement, and she's going to talk to you a little bit more about some other opportunities. So this is basically all opportunities for you to learn about how to get where you want to go. So it should be. Okay, so without further ado, please join me in welcoming David and Georgia. And really quick too, if you have a phone or laptop, check it. Put your laptop away and make sure your phone's not going to go off in the middle of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. All right, it's the end of a long, hot day, but I hope this time that you're dedicating to this is going to be worthwhile. I know I now have a sense from your hands kind of where your interests lie in terms of your academic future. I want to say, even if you didn't raise your hand, and I'm not sure there were any of you that didn't raise your hand, our office works with a whole variety of scholarships, including ones that I'm not really going to focus on today. So I've tried to focus on some scholarships that align with the kinds of skills and experiences and objectives that a lot of you, I assume, have. But if you don't find yourself in this presentation, I encourage you to reach out to me in any case. And we can talk about a scholarship or opportunity that works for you. So nationally competitive scholarships are usually provide between 1 to 3 years of funding and are usually directed at a student population or an applicant population that have a specific set of interests. They're funded by a whole gamut of different kinds of foundations and private foundations, government agencies, and other institutions. And they're basically intended to give you money to engage in research or have kind of international experience that help you along the way to achieving whatever professional or personal objectives you have. Our office, in addition to raising awareness in events like this, also accompanies applicants as they're preparing their application. From a lot of these, the vast majority require preparation of statements, personal statements, project statements, reaching out to recommenders, sometimes at other institutions. So we accompany applicants in that process. And then we also, some of these awards require institutional nomination or administration on campus. We do that as well. So I've touched on this already, but these opportunities are intended to kind of give you unique experiences, help you prepare yourself for what you hope to do. Often in an environment in collaboration with other students, with faculty, with institutes here in North America and outside of the country, to kind of allow you to pursue your intellectual development in a rich and challenging environment. Some of the scholarships that I'm going to be talking about today help fund undergraduate experiences, but others give you money for postgraduate opportunities in Europe and the rest of the world. So pursuing this kind of research in cross-cultural environments. Allows you to develop leadership skills and also to kind of build professional contacts and networks with other people with similar interests. There are other reasons, but I won't belabor the point. The 5 opportunities I'm going to focus on, each one briefly, are as follows, and each one has kind of an emphasis that I think will be of interest to most of you in the room today. So I'm going to start with the Goldwater, which is, as they argue, the most prestigious undergraduate scholarship in natural sciences, math, and engineering in the US. So this provides $7,500 for either 1 or 2 years, depending on when you apply, to pursue studies in these areas. And if you're wondering whether your particular research focus fits within the eligibility parameters, I'd be happy to talk to you, but it probably does if it's in one of these fields. You can see the eligibility. For most of these awards, you apply fairly early on in either the fall or the early spring for the subsequent academic year. So if you're going into your sophomore year, there's a application deadline coming up. If you apply in your sophomore year, you can have up to 2 years of funding. If you apply in your junior year, funding for your senior year, you would have 1 year of funding. Application materials. This is fairly standard for most of these kinds of awards. You have the application, some kind of essay, letters of recommendation, and your own transcripts. And then each of these particular awards gives you kind of indicators as to how to shape your statements. So if you go to the Goldwater Scholarship website, it talks about wanting to fund students who have a commitment to a research career. So a lot of you raised your hands earlier interested in pursuing graduate or doctoral studies. This is not a contract. You're not obligated to do this, but it has to be an objective of yours at this point. Intellectual intensity, potential for future contribution to your field. So when you're writing up this research essay, you have to kind of respond to those kinds of emphases. The astronaut scholarship is quite similar in terms of the kind of research it supports, rather than being a per year kind of amount of money. It gives you a block sum to pursue studies in these same areas, and it's also for people that are entering their sophomore and junior years. This has a bit of a higher GPA requirement for application. This is kind of a baseline. So obviously for almost all of these awards, academic merit is kind of an important component of that. Although, as you see here, as with some of these other awards, they're looking for evidence of creativity, for drive, for leadership potential. So I'm going to talk in a bit about the ways that, as a candidate or an applicant, you can kind of strengthen your application along those lines. The UDAL has a bit of a different focus. You can see the amount of money that it provides, but it's in the areas of tribal policy, native healthcare, or the environment. So there's actually a huge variety of different kinds of research that this kind of award would fund. The UDAL Foundation is actually, their home base is here in Tucson. So there's probably going to be an opportunity to have a rep from them come over at some time in fall to talk to those of you who may be interested in this kind of opportunity. This puts less emphasis on academic merit and talks more about leadership, commitment to public service, and issues related to Native American nations, health, public policy, or the environment and conservation, and that's fairly broadly defined. the Amgen Scholarship. This is another private foundation set up by a company that gives to 200 scholarships to those interested in conducting scientific research during a summer at one of these 10 institutions. So each, unlike some of these other awards, this requires a specific application for each one of these different programs. The institutions are kind of in that image up on the screen, and you can submit more than one application. The kind of list of eligible fields is smaller than the Goldwater or the astronaut, and is more directed towards research in life sciences, biotechnology, other kinds of things. So this is kind of a roughly 3-month opportunity to go to one of these institutions, participate in one of these programs with not only other students from the US, but from around the world. Each institution hosts about 20 scholars a year. This is, seems to me like an opportunity that would be of interest to a number of you. And as you can see, it's also, it takes place after your sophomore or junior year. I should say, for most of these awards, when they're calculating sophomore and junior year, they're not doing so in terms of number of credits that you have, but in terms of how many years you've been conducting undergraduate study. And as I said, each one of these opportunities has a kind of an individual application, so the application requirements vary a bit more than some of the other awards. The Churchill Scholarship is the last one I'm going to talk about specifically, but it's for those of you who are entering your senior year, your last year of undergraduate studies, and it funds a master's degree in science, math, and engineering at Churchill College in Cambridge. So this is for seniors, or if you've graduated, you can also apply within those 12 months after you've graduated. Here you have to apply both to Cambridge and to the program, although if you get the scholarship, kind of entrance into the program is pretty much guaranteed. The application for the Churchill, in terms of the statements, it's also looking for academic achievement, research potential, leadership, but it says, you know, it's looking for candidates with, I think they use the term, jagged edges. So if you've been spending a lot of time in the lab and you've kind of, there's other parts of your personality that you haven't developed quite as much, there's room for a whole variety of different kinds of applicants. Okay, so one of the questions I often get with the applicants is like, do I have a shot at these? Yes, you do. Arizona's produced winners for every single one of the awards that I've just talked about, and in some instances, more than one. You can see here these two winners, Jeannie and Travis, a number of years ago, both in the College of Engineering. This is a national competition with 15 awards nationally, and 2 of those 15 were from the University of Arizona. So basically, it's a national competition. You're not competing against your peers only here, but across the country, and Arizona students are competitive. So don't rule yourself out just because you are a bit intimidated by some of the language used around the prestigiousness of these awards. Some of you, I realize you're at different stages of your undergraduate degree. Some of you that are earlier on kind of have more time to develop kind of your portfolio, your application portfolio. Others of you have been doing so for a number of years. These are just some things to keep in mind as you prepare to apply. In addition to excelling in your classes, well, a lot of you have already kind of taken advantage of volunteer, internship, research opportunities available to you on campus. Further encouragement for you to continue to do so. Get to know your professors and or employers. These all require a number of reference letters and the kind of more constructive that relationship is with professors and other supervisors, the better. These also require some kind of statement of your personal trajectory, personal narrative, that in which you show the review committee or the foundation that you're headed somewhere and that this opportunity is going to help you to get you there. That's what a lot of these funding agencies and institutions are looking for. So this requires some writing. There's certain structures, there are different word lengths. In the office, we help you through that particular process. So, but that's something to start thinking about. I think most of the awards that I just mentioned are up on this kind of eligibility timeline. As you can see, the Critical Language Scholarship and the Boren Scholarship are both help fund language study abroad. Some of the awards I haven't focused on as much, but that would be available to quite a few of you are the British Awards, Rhodes, Marshall, the Gates Cambridge, the Mitchell. These are all awards that fund postgraduate, in British terminology, graduate studies in all fields at prestigious institutions overseas. So if those are opportunities that you're interested in, the application process, there's an application deadline coming up already in August. But if this is something that you'd like to aspire to, I'd encourage you to come and talk to me, because these requires kind of shaping an application over time. That's my contact information. My job is to work with you to kind of shape an application that'll be competitive. I'm happy to meet with you in person. I'm happy to answer your emails. I work with a number of colleagues who have long experience in scholarship advising, so if any of this has piqued your curiosity, I encourage you to reach out. And I think we'll have, after Georgia speaks, we'll have an opportunity to answer any questions that you have. Oh, that's yours? All right.
Even if you didn't raise your hand, I did see a few of you. I always tell the students I work with that life is long and you're going to be working for a long time. And one thing that often happens is I see people who have friends, know people who change directions with their career, even sometimes when they've really committed a lot to getting there. So I often enjoy working with grad students who are mid-career or even in their 40s and 50s who decide to come back to grad school. So don't discount it. Plant this in your brain somewhere as a little seed. So whether you go straight through or whether you take time out and gap year, travel, do work a bit, do Peace Corps, do AmeriCorps, there are many things you can do. So this should be relevant. I'm not Shelley, I'm Georgia, and we have a little office over above the Bursar's office in the University Services building if you ever need to come see us. And Shelley in particular works with the fellowship. She manages a number of summer support programs, fall support programs, and others. And many of these are I think David will be working with it as well, and they're open to undergrad students quite frequently. And that's another great way to find some mentoring and support while you're writing applications. There are also different departments that have classes around grant writing, and that's another great thing to look for in your program. A lot of students, we always do the grad orientation at the beginning of the year, and people have eyes as big as saucers, and they're very worried about money. And as an undergrad, often your parents may have been subsidizing you, or you may be working, or you may already have scholarships. But comes the day, and how are you going to do that? And sort of an easy short-term, but with long-term costs would be loans. So if you've never had them, you can always file a FAFSA form, and most universities will be very happy to give you loans. These will track you to the end of your days, though. So I am a big believer in minimizing loans, and that's one reason to think about grant writing along with prestige and all these other things. If some of you are working and earning money, perhaps you'll consider saving a little bit of it. It's a good thing to do. I used to always do grant writing workshops saying, how many of you have a budget? And my favorite was the class of math teachers when 0 of them had a budget. It was great. But think about how you can save even a small, tiny amount of money. I did that. At some point, I think my mom said, you will do this. And I think I put away $250 a year. It's worth, for about 3 years, I quit. And it's worth 20 grand now. So the magic of money, savings. Work, obviously, and employee benefits. If you have an actual university, HR, human resources job at the university, as anybody that works here knows, you qualify for what we commonly call QTR, and it's a tuition reduction, whereas your tuition is $25 a semester, not thousands of dollars a semester. So if you're really trying to shave off getting an actual job at a university or at other kinds of organizations, Raytheon has a program like that, IBM, I'm sure some of the hospitals must. So that's another great way to go back and get a little extra education or training at someone else's cost. There are other items that are sort of specific to grad college. One is the old tuition waiver. When you apply to grad school, I will honestly say if you apply to a doctoral program, you are more likely to get a better funding package offered than if you apply for a master's program. And I will let you think about that. Not everyone that applies for a doctoral program manages to finish. I know that this August group will. But just keep in mind in terms of funding, to maximize what you're going to be offered, the doctoral degree will net you more offers in general, depending on where you're going and where you're in. Medical school, veterinary school, pharmacy school, dental school, there's no special cases. And I can talk about that from a veterinary, I'm the mom of a veterinarian, so I can tell you all about that torture if you ever want to talk about that. There's less funding, but there is some funding, even for Arizona students in Colorado. And I guess we'll have our own vet school here one of these days soon. Most grad students are earning funding as teaching or research assistants. And I'm sure many of the undergrad classes you've had have had a teaching assistant in there, and that's how they make it through school, at least for 2 or 3 years. In some departments, the English department, the chemistry department, the mathematics department, they hire a lot of grad students because almost every undergrad has to roll through those courses. So those are always kind of lush places to look for assistantships. At the U of A, I don't know the deal at every school, you can often, you can accept an assistantship outside your own academic department. So if you're fluent in a certain language and can teach that, you could go and do that instead of doing microbiology. A lot of departments in the STEM area will offer some kind of research assistantship in the beginning of your studies. And sometimes it's go and think about what you want to do. It's kind of a nice thing. Other departments are very specific and have you're in the lab or you're really out there teaching or helping with teaching. Every university also offers certain scholarships and certain fellowships. All the donors to the university, as you graduate, you'll start receiving an annual call from a lovely alum who would like to talk to you about where you are and what you're doing, and are you still there, and would you like to make a donation? That will happen every year of your life, so get used to it. It's actually kind of fun to do. And so all those donations that roll in turn into scholarships and fellowships, often for undergrads, but also for grad students. And some of those at the U of A are accessed through a system called Scholarship Universe. Some colleges and departments have their own system of applications, and in some, they're not very organized, and they just appear on your U-Access account. But generally, you have to apply or seek them out. So don't be shy about asking when you're looking at other schools or any department that you're looking at for grad school. Look at what kind of funding they offer as a college and as a department. And because of the kind of work that you all are doing, you're going to be in a more competitive position than students who haven't used their summer in such a worthwhile way. And then what I'm really here to talk about are external or extramural funding, we call it. They're fellowships from the great beyond. And those include, well, first of all, you wonder, where do they come from? So, who knows where this image comes from? Raise your happy hand if you read this book. Yay, good for you, I like it. And I've been a long time grant writer. It's from The Little Prince, for those of you that didn't raise your hand and really don't know. And it's the elephant inside the boa constrictor, and if you read French, you can read along. But we're in a certain time, in a certain administration, and that affects the budget of certain agencies and how much money goes into education. Did I say that delicately? And it is true in every federal administration that you'll live through in your whole life. There will be priorities here and there, and they may change from one to the next. So to me as a grant writer, I've always felt like there's always money out there, even when it sounds like it's being cut. There's still money there, and my job as a grant writer is to figure out where it is and how my very worthwhile work can be funded by it. So sometimes it's a matter of putting the right spin on things. Sometimes it's a matter of thinking very much outside the box, thinking about vectors and all kinds of different ways of thinking about what you do, so you are a competitive applicant. So I always keep this image around to remind me of that. The university tries to make it kind of easy for you to find opportunities to apply for. David mentioned several really excellent ones, and I also want to point out that we have a number of searchable databases. Some of these are only available to you as a grad student. I see somebody writing, but I think this is going to be, yeah, you'll get this, so don't, So a few of these are free systems at other universities. The GRAPES is at UCLA, and Cornell also has a really excellent system. It's easy to search in both of them, and they're only for grad students, so it's really quick and easy to do sort of a simple search. But UCLA is organized along the lines of their academic programs. So the trick, of course, is knowing what you want to do, where what you want to do is located in the institution, because that can be different at different schools. The two that we have major databases for through the main library are Pivot and Grant Forward. Pivot was formerly known as Community of Science. It's still out there as Community of Science. Grant Forward came out of the University of Illinois, and they're both interesting. I would say Pivot has more in it, but it has more international opportunities than Grant Forward. And I have found in my experience, for example, when I work with people in the arts, there tend to be more opportunities listed in Pivot, Community of Science, than in Grant Forward. So just kind of poke around through both of them. You can go in through links on the Grad College, our office page, or through the main database at the main library. Don't spend hours and hours on it, but you have to get in and register and do a single search, and you save the search, and then you can get a little weekly or monthly email coming to you with opportunities that you identify that you're interested in. So that's the quick and easy shortcut to it. Finaid.com is just a wealth of resources about student funding in general. It's good background information. And I wouldn't rule out things like USA Jobs, pathways for students and recent grads, for internships and summer jobs and temp jobs, which are also, could be at the National Institutes of Health or the CDC, or at other kinds of the summer lab programs that the Department of Energy manages, those sorts of things. So you can find just a host of sort of short-term things that are palatable and in your field of interest. There are certain federal agencies that are very friendly to grad students, and the National Science Foundation is probably the big one. And you'll find other opportunities listed on those sites as well. And then I mentioned Scholarship Universe. It's a U of A specialty database, and you have to go out and fill out a tedious form, but once you get it, they'll email you when things come along that meet your profile. So, quickly, David mentioned a bunch of these already, so I'm not going to spend too much time, but when you're negotiating for a position in a graduate program, which I think is the way to do it, I always recommend that people apply to more than one school. You don't need to apply to 20 of them, which a student I worked with this year did, so it's a bad idea. But you will want to do as much research as you can on their website and on their university website to find out what kind of funding they offer. Most grad programs are going to have some kind of a page that makes it easy for you. If not, you can talk to whoever works with admissions at that institution. I always think it's a nice idea to email, look at the research interest of the professors, email a professor whose work interests you and see if they'll respond. Sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. And find out what kinds of fellowships you can apply for and what kinds of things you might have to be nominated for. So, for example, there's an Access Fellowship at the U of A for grad students that promotes diversity in terms of first generation, diversity within the department, income diversity, all kinds of diversity, gender diversity. So, but the department has to nominate you for it. So kind of be aware and figure out what is available to you. And then also ask, how many assistantships do they provide each year? And do they have a system? Do they have a set of policies for it? Some departments here at the U of A will only give it to you X number of times. Some will tell you far in advance. Some won't tell you till the day after school started. So you kind of want to check out what you can. A great thing to do is just talk to other grad students at that department and really ask them what the deal was and how it went down when they got there. I've talked about this a lot already, but teaching, research, there's sort of a scale, first year assistantship, second year, third year, master's level, doctoral level, so the pay goes up generally. Some institutions offer a lot more money than others do. I have a lot of fun talking to my return Peace Corps volunteers coming here and saying, and we'll pay you $8,500 a year for the academic year, and they're coming from Boston or New York or Berkeley, and they think I'm out of my mind. So I have to go through a whole thing about the cost of living. So even if it sounds like you're going to make a lot of money, UC Irvine, $30,000 when my daughter went there, but look at the cost of rent there. So it's always a balance. You're not going to get rich on an assistantship, but it does help, and it often waives your tuition and it pays for your health insurance, two basic things. Look around. I've mentioned the Access Fellowship. There are other initiatives that we have here in a lot of different departments for maximizing student diversity. I mentioned a couple here. The UA Graduate Fellows provide something like $34,000 for the first year, for 1 year here, and a lot of professional development opportunities. So look and see what kind of special training grants or special opportunities they have. Where are you going to find stuff? I think David and Jennifer and I could probably talk for hours on how one communicates and gets the message through in this day and age. It's so complicated because I think we're all overwhelmed with information and we're all scanning constantly. So honestly, word of mouth is not a bad way to find out things. Talking to your professor, being in groups like this where you're going to get some specialized information given to you is always a great way. So talk to your TA, talk to students that landed a Fulbright, somebody that's giving a talk on a program where they had a fellowship, and find out how they did it. Honestly, when I started writing proposals, it was usually because a professor told me to. So spend time talking to your professors too. It's a great way to do it. And they're postdocs and grad students in all your labs. So. Okay, on to the real deal. So, stages of graduate education. So David already talked about the 1 to 3 years of fellowships. You can only apply for these in the very early stages, often as a senior, sometimes as a junior, sometimes only in the first or second year of your graduate education. So even though this may be slightly outside your area of interest today, just remember that one fact. If you remember nothing else today, timing is everything. And I've got some things listed. There are awards for special populations. There are awards for travel. I especially am fond of those and love helping students go to other countries to do their research or to even just get to an archive or some other part of this country or this continent. You can often find funding for that summer, just like this program. You can find funding for internships, externships, practicums, go-ups, workshops, all of that takes place in the summer. And the undergrad student that really uses that wisely is going to be in a much better position when it comes time to apply for the grad school program, because you've already experienced different kinds of research, you've met a whole bunch of professors or worked in a lot of labs or done field research. There is specialized funding just for the dissertation research. There's not so much for the master's thesis, but there is some, and we'll talk, the Fulbright is a good one for that kind of a project, actually. There can also be support for the write-up stage of the dissertation. Not a lot. You do all this work, you go to the field, you come back, you need to write it up, and nobody wants to give you money. It's a terrible thing. So you don't really want some super labor-intensive teaching job at that point of life. So really look around and look ahead and try to get, there are some really great ones, but you have to really be ready for those. And then once you finish the doctorate, there's postdoctoral research, as we call it, and then often in certain fields, mostly the arts or music, they don't give anything to anybody until you're mid-career or super famous, so just really later on. But there can be awards. The Council of Grad Schools will give a Best Dissertation Award. I think you have to be like 1 to 5 years out. So what are the sources? Government funding, sometimes there are international funding from other, I don't know if we have any international students in here, but other governments or foundations abroad will often fund graduate education, like the German Academic Exchange is one that I can think of. Foundations, which David mentioned, also professional organizations, whatever field you go into, join as a student because it's really cheap and you can go to their conferences, you can work the registration table and meet a lot of people and do a lot of networking. It's a good thing to do. Other universities will often fund students from this, outside their school, and then you can often find commercial industry support. So whenever you're working in pharmacy or optics, that sort of thing, might have experience with that already. Four that we really like are the National Science Foundation Grad Research Fellowship. They offer 2,000 of these every year, and they also give out around 2,000 honorable mentions, which even if you don't get it on the first try, you can try a second time and sometimes have a better shot at it. So they're both good. The Ford Foundation Pre-Doctoral Fellowship. Ford has pre-doctoral, doctoral, postdoctoral, And it's, you can apply for 2 out of 3. So it's a pretty great thing to look for as well. The GEM Fellowship is a really nice one for people in diverse kinds of fields, and also, it's a really good one. And then the Fulbright Student Program, I have a lot of master's students who apply for this to go the year after they graduate with a master's degree. So you go and kind of get a 3rd year, gap year before you settle down to work or settle down to go through a dissertation. I'm going to give you just kind of one example. My very first semester of grad school at UT Austin, we had to write a full-blown research NSF fellowship. That was the hardest assignment I ever had, I have to say. But it taught me how to write grants in the best way possible. And even though I've worked in a wide variety of fields, there is commonality with all fellowship and all grant kinds of applications. So I'm just going to kind of give you sort of a basic grad fellowship rundown here in 4 to 5 slides. And this is, Shelley and I sort of talked through, and I've been writing grants a long time, but when I think about it, I sort of go through a process. Number 1, you can read this as, am I eligible, does it fit, or can I get out of this? I don't want to write a grant today. So you really need to make sure that you are an eligible applicant before you spend much time on it. It's the very first thing you need to know. They'll have some kind of program announcement or solicitation or a request for a proposal, has a bunch of names. But basically, it's a very boring document that somebody spent a lot of time putting together and trying to help you understand what they're about and why they want to do it and what the benefits are and what you have to do. So you need to read this a minimum of 2 or 3 times and keep going through it and highlight the good stuff that you really need to know to be able to do it. Some of the things I always look for are citizenship requirements, class standing requirements. David referred to GPA, or could be your academic area of interest, your field of study. And then you want to look very closely and see what is the purpose of this thing that they're funding. Is it to fund you? Is it to fund make the world a better place? Is it to, in the case of the National Science Foundation, it's to build a scientific workforce. So you've got to figure out what they want and how you fit in with that. Pretty easy. You want to always know what the benefits are and be clear about it. You have to read them a couple of times to really get it. All right, here's a quick math problem for you. Shelley made me take out the slide, but the NSF is 3 years of support over 5 years, so $34,000 a year, and that stipend tends to go up every couple of years as inflation has hit us. So 3 times 34, and then they give you an educational allowance of $12,000, which really doesn't cover it if you go to a lot of schools, but the little caveat for the university is you'll get this wonderful NSF fellow, but you have to pay the rest of their tuition. And we also cover their health insurance, and we also give them a travel award. So 3 times all of this, divide by 5 pages, which is what you have to submit, gives you a very nice number of what each page is worth. I will let you do the math, but just think about that when you look at the benefits on any of these. You know, you might say, oh, this is a lot of work. I don't have time for this. But do the math, okay? And then the great thing about the National Science Foundation Fellowship is only NSF fellows can apply for at least 3 other programs at NSF. So, you know, 2,000 of you per year, so you're in this really small cohort of people that get to apply for this other funding. And I'm working with a fellow right now who's living in Moscow. He's lived in Paris. He got the Chateaubriand on top of the NSF. And now that he's applying for the intern program, which gives you a year to work in the private sector. So he started, he's in linguistics. He works with deep language learning and machine learning, and he is working on with Mozilla to help them find quicker, better, faster ways to translate less commonly taught languages like Kyrgyz. How's that for a cool thing? And then we've had people spend, Ben Blonder, if anybody of you followed the Sky School, and Ben's great Photos got the grow to go to Denmark for a year, and they loved him so much they kept him on the second year. So you get one opportunity always leads to another opportunity. And I wanted to mention also the NSF thinks that you're a human. So those of you who need 3 months off can take family leave for your family life balance. So if you have a baby, your mom gets sick, you get sick, you can do that with this fellowship. It's really pretty awesome. Every year they are printing this out now with deadlines posted for the next 3 years. So we'll get a new one starting next year. These are the deadlines for 2018, which will kick in summer or fall of 2019. So it's always kind of this, and it's usually this time of year. And you find out, it's usually April when we find out. And there's a lot of hooping and hollering that day. It's a good day. So everything is submitted electronically in a system called Fastlane. And yeah, there are lots of internal reviews on the NSF side from all kinds of people, which may be different than what you think. What is required is simply that personal background information form. It's usually some sort of electronic form, blah, blah, blah. I went here, I did this, I did that. A personal statement, which is 3 pages, a graduate research study plan, 2 pages, transcripts, and with the NSF, you can submit up to 5 names for references. Only 3 of them will be read. Here's a dirty little secret. Not all faculty get their things in on time. So NSF started doing this so that you can track whether or not online, whether they've submitted their reference letters. And you can sort of prioritize them. I want 1, 2, and 3. If 3 doesn't submit, but 4 does, you can make it 1, 2, and 4. So you can tell them what to read based on who actually gets it in. So I thought it was a kind thing to do for students. They don't always do. I wanted to mention on the study plan, particularly since a lot of you are working in labs or in the field, that will sometimes work with students when they're seniors applying for this. And that's been their main research experience to date. The National Science Foundation is looking for that creative scientist who will have other ideas about what they want to do in grad school. So I like to consider what you're doing now sort of a baseline. Some of you may be so thrilled with what you're doing that you want to continue this for the rest of your lives. Others of you might like to try something different. So you will want to take what you have and what you know and what you've learned this summer, the specific skills, how a lab works, perhaps with certain, I was fascinated with all those photos, the kinds of equipment and processes that you learned, and really just what you've learned about the scientific process. And then you're going to take your own ideas, talk to your professors, talk to other students that you really admire. I was mentored by so many friends of mine, and take that to the next level. And that's what they're going to be looking for. Not, we did this in our lab. They want to know that, but they want to know, well, what's next? Why do you want to go to grad school? What are you going to do? Okay. It's always also important, step 5, how do they decide? I was in city planning for many years, and we always had our joke was we had a dartboard. It's more sophisticated than that. So every agency, everything will have review criteria. If it's a foundation, they may not tell you what the criteria are, but they will have some kind of criteria for making a decision, and they'll have a process. And they will have somebody that will be reviewing it. It can be a massive peer review at the National Science Foundation. They'll get other scientists to review it. And your work will be given to a panel, and it'll be a general panel based on the directorates at the National Science Foundation. And you might be in there with people from 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different areas. And the specific people that read your proposal should know a little something about your area, but they may not. They may not be a specialist in what you're a specialist. So you always, the real question behind this is it going to be read by a specialist, or is it going to be read by somebody that knows something about something? And it's usually that latter, especially for grad students, and the Fulbright Hayes doctoral dissertation research abroad. It's going to be somebody that knows about that geographic area of the world where somebody's going, not necessarily history or anthropology or geography or the kinds of fields that apply. So you always need to figure that out. The National Science Foundation has 2 criteria that apply to every single grant that comes in, whether it's from a student or faculty person. One is intellectual merit, the potential to advance knowledge. The other is the broader impact, the potential to benefit society and to contribute to the solution to problems. There's another level to it. They're funding you as a person, you as a student, you as somebody that will join the scientific thing. So you have to fit in this. And you have to make all your essays, everything that you turn in, meet these criteria, even the personal essay as well as the research proposal. That's the deal on that. And it's also good, I laugh with David, when the history students come in to see us, we love to read what historians write because it's blah, 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 page 2, blah, 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 page 3, and on page 3 we get to hypothesis. And we always say, no, your hypothesis needs to be in the first paragraph.
But it's
So-
complicated.
It's complicated. We need to give you the appropriate context. But when you're a grant reviewer, which I've also done many times, you're trying to get through the review criteria in terms of the proposal, which is usually very short. So it's like sort of like writing poetry, not your life's work, not your journal. So think about the writing in your field and what they want, and go from there. David's already talked about a lot of these things, and I think probably a lot of your talks this summer may have emphasized it as well. They do look at your academic record. It's not everything with some of them, but it's a lot with others. Get to know your professors, get to know your TAs, get to know your employers. I always say cultivate 3 to 5 people that can write a great reference letter for you. Get out there and get outside the lab. Volunteer in the community. Make a difference out there. I always encourage people to learn a language, to travel to another country, study abroad. There are some amazing opportunities to do graduate research in other countries where it's essentially free. It's amazing. Reflect on your long-term goals. It's hard to write about what you want to do in life if you haven't decided. Many of you will not know yet, and you may not know even the day you start grad school. But come up with a couple of options that you can talk about. You can change your mind later, but have some options in mind. Think about how you can get involved with leadership roles in terms of broader impact with the National Science Foundation. Some panels are fine. I mentored a student, I did this, I did that. Some people are like, well, I've only worked for 4, 5, 6 years. So think about how you can also take a leadership role in what you're doing. Some panels are really strict and they want to see not just that you mentored, but that you created something. You started a nonprofit, you did, you changed policies at the university, or you made your department a happier and healthier place to go to school. So, and then the last thing I tell people, I was emailing with a student yesterday who has applied to 2 different departments and doesn't yet know what he's going to do this fall. And I'm like, well, do the one you really want to do. Don't go just because of the funding. Go where it's going to make sense for you, that they have the facilities and the people and the support as well. Okay. And then timing's everything, isn't it? Most fellowship applications for grad school are going to happen in the fall for the next year. So if it's external or national, there's 6 to 12 months ahead of time window that you're looking at. Note the deadlines, and don't just get up to the deadline and go, oh, I'm going to throw this together in a week. That's really stressful. Look at the deadline and back it up. We like to encourage students to write things during the summer because you usually have a little bit more time. You can only fit so many things into life. I know we try. I stayed up a lot of late nights in my own, but try to make it realistic. And use your classes as well as you can. or summer projects to help you develop the different aspects of what's required. Somebody's probably already talked about this, yes, me. Get to know your professors, organize, ask ahead of time. I hate it when somebody says, this is due tomorrow, could you write this? They won't get a very good letter from me if they do that. So give them plenty of time, and also be polite and follow up and send them a thank you note. Who gets awards? All kinds of people get awards. Jessica Nelson's defended. She was in anthropology and worked in Brazil on the Fulbright days. I worked with her quite a bit. She was a remarkable student. She worked so hard on her proposal with multiple drafts, and really did a fantastic job. I told you about Josh, who's not pictured here. Shelley was going to actually talk about these three people that I don't know, but they're all people that got fellowships. And I think that U of A is a little bit lucky. I know other schools have mentors as well, but we do have a lot of offices and a lot of classes and a lot of people that are really focused and interested in seeing you be successful. Most professors are really happy and willing to give you a reference letter because it makes them look good too if you were their student. So it's part of their job, but just be polite and kind to them, and let them get to know you enough that they can write a really persuasive, good letter. Don't just end it all happy. So, all right? Good luck. Do your research. The end. And, there is, I'm not going to talk about this, but I just listed a whole mess of other links and kinds of things that you can apply to in a random variety of fields. So just FYI, you can look some of those up if you get stuck. And we're happy to work with you or help you out if you're interested. Let us know. Thank you.
We have just a couple minutes for a few questions, if anyone has any. Yes?
So I know just a personal thing for me, but when I applied for the Goldwater, there was a pre-application, but the pre-application was the entire application just submitted to U of A. There wasn't a lot of things that would let you know that it was supposed to be the full application. Are any of these other awards in that same category of having a pre-application?
Well, David can address the Goldwater. We have some that have an internal deadline, and we always debate how much to ask for. The German Academic Exchange, the DAA, we have a priority application, and the whole thing is quite a lot of work and reference letters and all of that. So we try to give our review committee, we have an internal faculty review committee that decides who it will be. So we try to give them enough so that they can make a decision, but not enough to completely wear you down. Others, we, in the grad college and our program, will give certain deadlines for drafts. And if you make those deadlines, you're going to get better feedback from us than if you don't. But everyone is a little bit different.
Yeah, for someone like the Goldwater, other awards that one would apply for as an undergrad, there's kind of institutional review processes. Either, I mean, they kind of fall into two categories. One, because there's a limited number of people that the university can nominate to go onto the national competition. Right. Or in some other cases, it's so that you can receive feedback and improve that. I should say that, like, that scenario is kind of unfortunate that wasn't clear for you. I should just say that for all of these, they don't require that you get in touch with us in order for you to apply. But it's worth doing so, just because we can help you clear up those kinds of questions, like what is the pre-application? What happens to this after I submit it to the university? Am I going to get another crack at this or not? It's just worth letting us know in advance, even if you decide not to kind of make use of us because you're working with a faculty member or whatever else. But yeah, there are a number of awards that have this kind of institutional review process before it gets sent on. Sometimes, yeah, for those various reasons that I already mentioned.
And I'll mention one other area. We have some where the deadline, for example, we had the one this summer, the deadline was July 2nd to submit, but we had to have it all uploaded into this lovely electronic system, and then you have to go through sponsored projects to submit some of these. So you have to sign it, your faculty person has to sign it, your department head has to sign it, the dean of the college has to sign it before it can even go to sponsored projects and be considered. So often, you know, it's important to know if it's something you submit directly or if it has to go.
And then David, are you able to see students who are not in the honors college
Oh, yeah.
for any of these?
Yeah, I wanted to make that clear. My office happens to be an honors college, and we're happy to work with honors college students. But our office works with anyone on campus who wants to apply for these awards. These awards are not restricted to people, to students from the honors college. So yeah, by all means, you should feel free to reach out, no matter where you are on campus.
So I brought them so you can put names and faces together. Should you apply, you should go.
You should apply. I mean, Georgia talked about this kind of progression within the NSF, but that progression exists across awards as well. So that if you apply, and there are awards that I didn't speak about, but there's usually kind of a ladder for you, no matter where your starting point is in terms of applying and receiving these awards. So even if that number amount doesn't seem like it's worth the effort or whatever, it opens up these other opportunities as you move forward.
And your question also reminded me of another student of mine, Maggie Camp, and who teaches over linguistics, and she applied for the Fulbright Hays, and she applied for the Fulbright to go to Japan, and she got both of them. And the Fulbright Hays is really almost onerous. It's a 10-page document, plus a bibliography and a CV and a bunch of letters and a letter with the link, and it's a lot of stuff. And she said, after I did that, even though I didn't take it, writing my dissertation proposal was a piece of cake. So just no effort is wasted.
I did the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And then keep in mind the way that things sound may not be exactly what you think either. So I know we had a UBRP student who was working in plant sciences who got the astronaut scholarship, because it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with wanting to be an astronaut.
The money actually comes from astronauts that gave money.